Hey up everyone, welcome back to my channel. Hope you're all having a good day and you're staying inside and you're looking after yourselves. Today's video is going to be my greatest ever Cronulla-Sutherland Sharks team from 1967 to 2019. So before I get into today's video, I'd just like to make a disclaimer. I just want to say that the team that I'm going to announce, it's not the official team, it's just a bit of fun. It's my opinion on the team, nobody else's. I also want to thank everyone that subscribed to my channel, and I want to welcome all the new subscribers and also say hello to all the old subscribers. Thank you for all your support. The YouTube channel is growing, and also if you get some spare time, go over to my Facebook page. I run a Facebook page called Rugby League History. I'll put a link in the description below. So without further ado, let's get into the team now. And I'll be going from fullback all the way to the bench, so 1 through to 17, and I'll also be naming the coach as well. So my first player is David Peachey. So David Peachey is my fullback in this team. David Peachey played for the club in the 1990s and 2000s. He played a total of 232 matches for Cronulla, and he scored 110 tries. So I had the pleasure of watching David Peachey play when I was growing up. He had great agility for such a tall person. He had a great step, great agility. He scored some really good tries, but the way that he scored them, it was almost uncanny. Like the type of tries that he scored, you can't kind of teach that. Some of them were really special. If you get a chance, go on YouTube and search them for yourselves. I can't think of anyone else at fullback that I could put in front of David Peachey. He's a bit of a no-brainer in my team. On the left wing, I've gone for Matt Rogers. He played for the club in the 1990s. He is the son of Steve Rogers, as you all know. He also represented Queensland and Australia while playing for Cronulla. He was a good goal kicker. He actually is the second highest point scorer in Cronulla's history. And he was a big part of that 1999 team which won the minor premiership. He also played in a lot of other finals matches for them in the 90s. Played in that 1997 Super League Grand Final defeat against Brisbane. But he gets me left wing. At left centre, I've gone for Matt Rogers' father, Steve Rogers. His nickname was either Sludge or he was also called the Prince of Centres. Steve Rogers played 202 matches for Cronulla in the 1970s and 1980s, and he was also, and still is, the highest point scorer at the club. He's been voted as one of the greatest players that ever lived. Some people have said that he's Cronulla-Sutherland's greatest ever player, so he's a no-brainer for me left centre. At right centre, I've gone for Andrew Ettingshausen, or E.T. So for many years, Andrew Ettingshausen held the record for the most games played for Cronulla until Paul Gallen broke that last year. Andrew Ettingshausen played for the club for nearly 2 decades. Like David Peachey and Matt Rogers, I had the pleasure of watching Andrew Ettingshausen. He was a fantastic centre. He was always there at the right time, the right moment. He had a great step, very agile, good with his hands, great try scorer. Once again, just like some of the other people I'm going to put in this team, it's a no-brainer. I can't put anyone in front of Andrew Ettingshausen for one of the centre spots. On the right wing, probably my first controversial choice is Valentine Holmes. Now let's just forget for a moment the way that he actually left the club and focus on his playing ability. He was a great player for Cronulla. He was part of that maiden premiership win in 2016. He played over 100 matches for the club and scored 60 tries. I think if he would have stayed his whole career at Cronulla, he could have, no doubt, maybe beaten Andrew Ettingshausen's records for the most tries scored. He also represented Queensland when he was at Cronulla. I thought that Valentine Holmes was a fantastic player for Cronulla. It's a shame the way that it ended. I'm sure most of you Cronulla fans would agree, but he gets me spot on the right wing. I could have chosen a couple of other players, but I decided to go for Valentine Holmes. At 5'8", I've gone for James Maloney, another controversial decision. James Maloney was only at the club for 2 years, but he was part of that 2016 Maiden Premiership win. He was so vital to that team winning the Premiership. He was signed from Eastern Suburbs with the job of delivering Cronulla a Premiership, and in his first year he achieved it. What more can you say? I could have gone with other people on the list, because there have been other people that have played their whole careers at Cronulla at 5'8" and been at the club for a lot more, but I'm going to give this to James Maloney because his impact in those 2 years for Cronulla was just immeasurable. At halfback, I've gone for Tommy Bishop. So Tommy Bishop come to Cronulla from England. He'd played nearly his entire career over here, and he captained the club in the 1973 Grand Final against Manly. Tommy Bishop, he was one of the first players that I ever heard of when I was growing up in regards to Cronulla. He's well respected at the club, he's well revered. People that actually were around back then, that actually saw him play week in, week out, have told me how good he is. Whenever greatest ever Cronulla teams or greatest ever eras are mentioned, especially in the 1970s, Tommy Bishop's his name is always mentioned. So he gets me spot at halfback tonight. So the props, I've gone for Andrew Fifita and Dane Sorenson. So Andrew Fifita still plays for the club. He's been at the club for a few years now. He was part of that Maiden Premiership win. He was the player that actually scored the winning try for Cronulla. It was one of the best tries I've seen in a grand final in modern times. He grabbed the ball, he run at the defence, he took about 5 players with him over the line and done the pivot, put the ball down, and that try ended up winning Cronulla their first Premiership. So besides that, Andrew Fifita has been a great servant for Cronulla in his time there. Yes, he's done some controversial things. Yes, he can be a bit of a loose cannon, but he's a vital member of the team, and he's also represented Australia, Tonga and New South Wales while playing at Cronulla. And the other prop, Dane Sorenson, he played 217 matches for Cronulla. He was one of their main front rowers going back in the early days, 1970s, 1980s. He also represented New Zealand. Whenever people talk about greatest ever Cronulla players, Dane Sorenson's name's always mentioned. So he gets me other prop. At hooker, I've gone for Michael Ennis. Another controversial decision. There's been hookers that have been at the club for a lot longer than Michael Ennis was, but his impact at Cronulla was, like with James Maloney's, immeasurable. He brought a lot of experience to the club, a lot of determination, a lot of grit. He was part of that 2016 Maiden Premiership win, and he also provided one of the most iconic moments in Cronulla's history when they upset Canberra in the first qualifying final, and he went over to the Canberra fans and did the Viking clap. And that's been repeated in the final series over the last few years. Michael Ennis, great hooker, not the greatest hooker of all time. He also has his critics with the way that he's carried himself on the field. He has been accused of being a bit of a grub, a bit of a pain in the ass. But tonight he gets me spot at hooker. The second rowers, I've gone for Gavin Miller and Wade Graham. So Gavin Miller, he was one of Cronulla's most important ever players. He played in the 1980s for the club. He won 2 Dally M's back to back, 1988 and 1989 off the top of my head. He's one of the most talented players that Cronulla's ever had, so he's a no-brainer. And the other player, Wade Graham, he come to the club from Penrith. He's still at the club. He's played well over 100 matches now. He was part of that Maiden Premiership win. When Wade Graham was injured, I think it was either last year or the year before, you could tell that Cronulla really missed him. He's a vital member of the team. He's great with the ball in hand, but he's also great with defence. He can pull off a big hit. He's very aggressive in defence, and he's also very good in attack. In his time at Cronulla, he's also represented Australia and New South Wales, so he gets me all the second rower. And at lock, Paul Gallen, one of the most divisive figures in modern rugby league history. Love him or hate him. He's pretty much done it all as a rugby league player. He's won a premiership in 2016. He captained the club for many years. He represented New South Wales, represented Australia. He broke Andrew Ettingshausen's record for the most ever games at Cronulla. He finished with 348 matches. Yes, he's not the most lovable person in the world. A lot of people hate him. I'd say that he'd probably go down as one of the most hated players in the modern era. But what he did on the field is immeasurable, and I think he deserves his spot at lock for all he did for Cronulla all through those years. I think he played a total of 18 years of first grade he played, which is a fantastic achievement. And on the bench, the first player I've chosen is Mitch Healey. So if you don't know who Mitch Healey is, he played for the club in the late 80s and right through the 90s and left the club in the early 2000s. Mitch Healey played at either 5/8 or halfback. He played a total of 222 matches for the club in that time, and he was part of that 1999 minor premiership winning side. Mitch Healey, I remember growing up watching him play. He was always a sound halfback or 5/8, a loyal servant of the club. He was a very good player. He never really got that higher representative honour, but I think he was a very important member of that Cronulla team through the 90s when they made the grand final. They made a couple of preliminary finals. So he gets me spot at on the bench as the first bench player. The second bench player goes to Greg Pearce. So he played 210 matches for the club. Greg Pearce has been described as one of Cronulla's best ever players. He played for the club in the 1970s and 1980s. Whenever they ever talk about greatest ever Cronulla players, Greg Pearce is always one of the first names mentioned. He generally played at second row or lock, but with Paul Gallen being at lock in my team, I've decided to go for Paul Gallen as the starter, and I've put Greg Pearce on the bench. My third player is Luke Lewis. So Luke Lewis, he's in my greatest ever Penrith team. Go check out that video if you get a chance. Luke Lewis was Mr. Reliable, Mr. Utility man. You could play him anywhere. Wing, lock, second row, 5/8, didn't matter. He was pivotal for Cronulla in 2016 when they won their maiden premiership. He was also named Clive Churchill medal winner in the match. I reckon Luke Lewis could still play today. He was still a valuable member of the team, still a great player even in his final season. And I've left out a few people that I think could have fit in this team as well, but I think Luke Lewis, in my opinion, is one of Cronulla's best ever players and someone that was so vital to that maiden premiership win. And my last player on the bench is Kurt Sorensen. So he's Dane Sorensen's brother. He played for the club in two spells in the 70s and 80s. He played 132 matches and he represented New Zealand 28 times. Kurt Sorensen is a club favourite at Cronulla and one of their favourite sons. Good front rower. I think he deserves a spot in the team for all that he did for Cronulla. So he gets me final bench spot. And now we come on to the coach. There's a few coaches I could have picked for greatest ever Cronulla coach. There's John Lang, there's Norm Proven. But I've decided tonight to go for Shane Flanagan. So Shane Flanagan was the head coach when the club won their inaugural premiership. After 49 years in the competition, he did what no other coach had managed to do. Not even the great Jack Gibson could lead Cronulla to a premiership. An interesting stat, he was the head coach of Cronulla for about 8 years and they only missed the finals twice under Flanagan. And one of them happened to be the year of the Asada scandal where they finished with the wooden spoon. And I don't even think Shane Flanagan was the coach that year when they did get the wooden spoon. I think Peter Sharp was in there as an interim because Flanagan was banned. But he, in his final few years at the club, he got them to the finals. Then then they won the Premiership, and then they made the finals again, and then in his final year as coach before he was suspended, they made the preliminary final, so they nearly made another grand final under him. I think Shane Flanagan did a lot of good stuff for Cronulla. Yes, he's a bit of a controversial figure, and yes, he's done some bad things, but I'm just focusing on his coaching ability and how he managed to get the players up for games and how he guided them to their first Premiership in 49 years. You can't go past that. So, that's my team. That's my greatest ever Cronulla-Sutherland team from 1967 to 2019. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please consider giving it a like. If you really enjoyed it, please consider sharing the video. Share it with your friends and family. Get their opinion on what I've said. Leave your comments in the section below. Did I get the team right or didn't I? Did I leave anyone out? And if you get a couple of spare moments, head over to Rugby League History. That's my Facebook page. It's going really well at the moment. As I said before, I'll leave a link in the description below. Go check it out. If you're a big fan of nostalgia and you love the olden days and you love the history, go check it out. But as always, I'll catch us all later, everyone. Take care of yourselves. Ta-ra.